Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we are going to discuss the normative research, scientific research, and the value free research. These terminologies may be new to some people, and some people may be already aware of these concepts. However, as a student of research and methodology, we have to know about these normative research, scientific research, and value free researches. So, first we discuss the normative research. What is the normative research? The normative research is an inquiry which implies conclusion. Normative inquiry implies conclusion. In fact, the normative research starts with a conclusion and hunts for evidence to support it. So, they start with a conclusion and try to collect the evidence to support it. The normative method of investigation raises the issues in such a way that the conclusion is implied, and then, of course, looks for the evidence to support it. While scientific inquiries draw conclusions, and the scientific method proceeds from evidence to conclusion, not that the conclusion has to be somehow supported by the evidence, or evidence have to be hunted for supporting the conclusion. No. In the scientific inquiry, the method proceeds from evidence to conclusion. Whereas in normative research, the issue indicates the conclusion first and then gathers evidence to support it. We have given some examples for understanding this, that how a normative research, the issue is already decided, the conclusion is already decided, and then the evidence are to be hunted or gathered to support it. So, for example, how does a traditional family support family planning? So, in this type of, this is a normative type of research where we have set up the title of the research. However, the title itself supports that the traditional families do support the family planning, because the title is, how does a traditional family support family planning? So, the hidden conclusion is already here, and now the evidence have to be hunted for supporting this conclusion. So, this is the example of a normative research. Next example, why does an alcoholic or a drug addict commit crime? So, here it is already conclusion is decided that alcoholic or a drug addict commits crime. So, the conclusion has been given. Implicit is the conclusion in this topic, and the evidence would be hunted for supported this, to support this. That is the normative research. Class operation is the cause of most social ills. So, we can see this example here. It is already implicit in the topic that it is the class operation which is the, or all the most social ills are due to the class operations. That is the implicit conclusion. The evidence would be gathered to support the conclusion that most social ills are because of the class operation. That is the normative research. Another example, crime is the result of personality disorder. So, implicit in the topic is the hidden conclusion that personality disorder is because of the crime. The personality disorder results in crime, and now the evidence would be collected. There will be effort to gather the evidences to prove this statement, to prove this conclusion. Rural poverty is caused by lack of infrastructure. So, the conclusion is implicit that it is the lack of infrastructure which results in rural poverty. And then the evidences would be gathered or collected for proving this conclusion. Next example is poverty breeds crime. Here also we have concluded that the crimes come out of poverty. So, this normative research, in this normative research, the conclusion has been given and the evidence would be collected to prove this conclusion. Or the domestic policy determines the foreign policy. This also is a conclusion based research where this conclusion has to be supported by gathering of evidence in its favor. So, the concept of normative research must be very clear in our minds, that a research in which conclusion is already implicit and then the whole research is to gather and collect the evidence to support and to prove that conclusion. So, it is a normative research. Then comes the scientific research. The scientific method of inquiry consists of posing a question or raising an issue, collecting evidence and drawing conclusions from the evidence. The scientific research is quite different from normative research, and the titles of the scientific research would be like the following, the same titles which we used in the normative research, but the choice of the words and choice of the sentence makes all the difference. So, in this inquiry, scientific research, a question would be posed or a issue would be raised, then collect the evidence and draw the conclusions from the evidence. So, the examples which are for the scientific research would be like this. These are the same examples which were given in the normative research. So, there would be a good comparison between the two kind of researches, that is normative and scientific. What are those examples? The title in this scientific research would be Relation between a traditional family and family planning. Here we do not find any implicit conclusion. The things are quite open and nothing is decided from the very beginning. So, the data, empirical data about the traditional family and family planning would be collected, and whatever the relation between the traditional family and family planning would be reported after an analysis of the data. So, here no gathering of or collection of evidence to support the conclusion, but the conclusion comes out of the empirical analysis. In the next example, relation between alcoholic addiction, drug addiction and crime. Here also there is no implicit conclusion, and the data would be collected, evidence would be collected to arrive at a conclusion which we have kept open. Any conclusion can be arrived in this relation. So, that is the difference between scientific research and the normative research. Further, relation between the domestic policy and the foreign policy. Here again, there is no implicit conclusion that one determines another. It has been left to the evidences. Data will be collected to get these evidences, and if data can speak, whatever data or the analysis of the data gives us the facts, we are going to accept that. So, the scientific research in this way is quite different from the normative research. Again, the relation between class operation and social ills. So, a relation has to be studied between class operation and social ills. However, here in this scientific research, the title has been, the problem has been set up in such a way that there is no implicit conclusion, and the conclusion is wide open to be arrived from the analysis of the data. So, this makes a difference between the normative and scientific research. Next is the relation between infrastructure and poverty. Again, here we see the difference. In the scientific research, there is no conclusion in the beginning, but in the problem of the state, in the statement of the problem, the relation between infrastructure and poverty is open, left, and it has been left open for the empirical inquiry, and from the empirical inquiry, that is analysis of the after the data collection, only one would be able to find whether there is a relation between infrastructure and poverty or not, whether the relation is positive, negative, or no relation. So, in scientific research, we keep open. This could have any kind of conclusion which comes from the analysis of the data. Similarly, relation between poverty and crime. Again, in this example, there is no implicit conclusion to blame one factor for the causation of another factor, rather as in the normative research. Here, in scientific research, there is no conclusion. Only the problem visualizes to be researched the relation between poverty and crime, and this is a scientific research because there is no implicit conclusion in between poverty and crime. The conclusion is left, it will be supplied by the analysis of the data. So, with these examples, we can understand the difference between the two kind of researches, that is normative research and scientific research. All the previous topics studies were normative because they began with a conclusion and search for the data to support it. And if there has to be a scientific research, then of course, as we have seen in the examples of scientific research, the conclusion is left open to be fulfilled by after the analysis of the data. So, the difference is clear. The normative starts from conclusion and then collects and gathers evidences to support it, whereas the scientific research starts with an open mind, with an open conclusion, and it is only the analysis of the data which would give the conclusion. So, the difference. However, it is said that this does not mean that all the findings of normative research are necessarily wrong. It says that they must be termed as incomplete. So, we have discussed in detail the normative research and the scientific research. Now we proceed to discuss the value-free research. What is the value-free research? The term value here does not have any economic meaning or the market meaning. Value here is an abstract, generalized principle of behavior expressed in concrete form in social norms. Scientific research refers to disinterestedness, that the researcher does not have to be interested in any of the conclusions or any of the findings. He is totally immune to it. Scientific research presents facts as they are. A scientist has a moral responsibility of providing findings without any bias and prejudices. The motivation of a scientist in conducting research is curiosity and developing theories. However, there are two views about the neutrality and objectivity in scientific research. One view is that scientists can be value free, that is value neutral, while other is that scientific research cannot be value free, that is normativism. Max Weber accepts the previous position. According to him, if a researcher separates his daily life from his professional role, then he can be free of biases. On the other hand, Alvin Goldner believes that the value-free science is a myth, though it is desirable. Carl Manham is of view that value-free research is a desirable goal which a social scientist has to strive for without any necessary expectations of actually attaining it. For this, social scientist has to remain careful in choosing the problems of research and follow the data in whichever direction they lead. It has to be regardless of how much the conclusion may please or displease researcher or the sponsor. Whereas Mills and Wordsworth contend that objectivity is unattainable. Some value judgment is necessary for solving social problems. Our socialization is based on values which direct our thinking and action. Disclosing bias or personal belief is less danger than pretending to be value free, and that the social sciences are normative. However, a social scientist has the responsibility toward the society. The professional ethics demands the following standards in research: accuracy in collecting and processing of the data, using relevant methods and techniques in research, interpreting data according to appropriate methodological standards, reporting findings accurately and honestly. Therefore, the basic thing is that science has to be value free. We, the scientist, is also staying in a social environment, and he is influenced by the society, by the happenings in the society. The scientist, any individual, may have a good opinion about something, may have a bad opinion about something. He may have sympathy about something, he may not have sympathy about something. He may love something and he or she may hate something. So, the man or the woman or the researcher is, or he or she cannot claim that he or she is free of all the biases, all the prejudices. One cannot claim to be that. It is simply unnatural. So, however, when we decide to be a researcher, we have to control all our feelings, all our sympathies, all our biasness, all our prejudices, all our good feelings and bad feelings. We have to control and see to it that these do not influence the research to an even little extent, because otherwise the research will not remain research. It can become eulogy, it can become anything. So, to say that there cannot be value research, value free research, is to decline the chances of, is to deny the chances of the scientific research, because somehow or the other we have to control the values which we are carrying with ourselves. We should become like stones, and the researcher has to be given training. A stone means no impact, no feeling, and no effect of anything happening in our own life or within us or in the society. The researcher has to be trained for that. Until and unless the researcher learns to keep the values that he has been carrying in our minds, the research cannot be perfect. We do exist with many prejudices about certain people, about certain civilization, about the progress of some. But if we are not able to remove this in our research proceedings, then our research cannot acquire the standard and quality for which we are striving or a researcher aspires to achieve. The scientists have to refrain from becoming advocates of programs and policies of the power elites. So, come what may, the researcher is not influenced either by the values in himself or values existing in the atmosphere in which he or she is working and in which he or she is doing the research. So, this has to be acquired by the researchers. Of course, it takes time, but if any of us want to become a real professional researcher, then we have to achieve this quality of becoming value free in our research pursuits, and we mean this by the value free research. So, I am sure that I have been able to make you understand what is normative research, what is scientific research, and what is value free research. I wish it is very much clear to you. With this, I conclude and thank you very much.